It's inarguably the more recognizable face that you'll see on the wall behind me here as well, as we have done up the Newsroom Africa Channel 405 studios so beautifully, as always, of course, is the very recognizable Michael Essien. Michael, it is lovely to have you on set in studio. Good evening and welcome back to South Africa.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me here.
Now, you haven't been back to SA for quite some time. So firstly, we as South Africans are very upset that you haven't come back to visit. But tell me, why is it that back in 2019, some good 5, 6, 7 years later, we find you back in SA?
Well, then I have to say a big thanks to Budweiser for bringing me back to South Africa to meet my fans here.
So you're here to chat about the Premier League, to chat about La Liga. It's two roles and two leagues that you in particular have had a wonderful time in being able to be a part of. Many would remember the Premier League moments far more often, and we've put some of your accomplishments just over your shoulder as well there. If and when someone breaks it down like this, do you ever take a look at those accomplishments and read them out and say, so two-time English champion, League Cup winner, French Super Cup winner, Champions League winner, FA Cup winner, has it sunk in, or do you ever look back and think, man, that is quite unbelievable?
Oh, well, I'm one of those guys who doesn't really think about those things, you know, to be honest. And all I want to do is, you know, to play football, enjoy the game, and make the fans happy, you know. So,
there's the idea that being an African player makes life more difficult to go to Europe and perform very well. You and some very famous African players around you at the time when you were perhaps at Chelsea certainly disproved that theory. But do you feel that maybe as an African player sometimes it is tougher to get out of the continent and go and travel and play football abroad?
you know, being a footballer is not easy. I mean, everyone wants to play the game now, and I think to go abroad also is not easy. But I mean, you need to work hard to, you know, and when the chance come, you have to grab it with both hands and go out there and try to work and, you know, and make it better.
How much do you think your game changed as a player, being able to get out of Ghana, to go and play abroad? I'm just thinking of many young South African players, South African footballers that perhaps only really know the South African football scene here without having really experienced what's out there. Do you feel that players benefit massively by being able to break away from their home country and go play abroad?
I mean going abroad kind of help you progress in the game. You see the game in a different way, and it kind of help you to, you know, to even do better. And I think that's one of the reasons why we go abroad, and when we get the chance, we go there to learn more. I mean, you go there, you come back, you see the difference you've made when you move out there. So yeah, I mean, it's good for us to, you know, to get a chance to go there and learn more about the game.
And the Ghanaian football team boasts a lot of big names. You're one of many stars that have come out of the Ghanaian team. And is that evidence of the system working? That we take a look at perhaps at Cote d'Ivoire, at Ghana, at Senegal, at Cameroon, there are a large number of players that do play abroad. Then you all come back to the African continent, and we see those countries every single year performing better at AFCONs and at World Cups. Is that evidence that being able to play abroad helps expand your game?
Well, it does. It does. I can say yes to it, because as I said earlier on, we go out there to learn, and then when we get the chance to represent our country, we kind of put everything together. What we've learned abroad, and you know, we're trying to, you know, perform for our nations as well, and trying to make the nations happy.
What was harder for you to acclimatize to when you went off to the UK or when you went off to Spain? I've had the ability and the luck of going to both countries, and I can imagine that I would probably enjoy myself in Spain far more than I would the UK. But you certainly made Chelsea a second home for you, didn't it?
I mean, yeah, Chelsea is always going to be a second home for me, because that's where I kind of spend most years playing there, and also, you know, I was lucky enough to get a chance to move to Madrid for a year, which was a massive, you know, move in my career as well. So yeah, I enjoy myself out there, you know, trying to work hard for the team, and then yeah, and back to London, you know.
Did you find the fans very receptive to especially back in the Chelsea days when you had moved for a very big record fee? Perhaps they didn't know too much about you from the English fans. Did they take to you very well? Were they very receptive to have a young Michael Essien join this team?
Well, they were. I mean, as you said, they didn't really know much about me, and
Did that make it easier that perhaps they didn't know you, so you could just be yourself?
The fee was very huge at that time, but I mean, I didn't really care much about that. And when I moved there, I mean, I look around the room, the dressing room, I see all these big names, and you know, it makes me want to work even harder and to make a name. So I mean, the fans will, you know, will see that they didn't spend that amount of money for nothing. So that's what I did.
Did you enjoy the mentoring role? Because you yourself eventually became a very big name as well, and I'm sure that there were then youngsters that came into the Chelsea setup when you had then become rather established. Did you enjoy being able to be that senior character in the change room on the field?
Yeah, I kind of felt that, you know, because as you said, the young ones were coming through, and you know, I was one of the oldest guys who kind of guide them. So I mean, it was good. The dressing room was amazing. All the boys were good. Everyone want to, you know, work hard and, you know, get into the team.
I know there's a lot of South African football players that keep an eye, or South African football fans, I beg your pardon, that keep an eye on what's going on in Ghana right now for domestic football. Is it worrying for you to see the situation of what's happening with the league, and or at least the lack thereof of a league in Ghana right now?
Well, I think we had a few problems a few months ago. I don't know if that is solved, because I don't really kind of follow that much. But I mean, if they can get the league back and for the local boys to enjoy what they love to do, it will be good.
Who treated you like a king more? Was it the fans of Madrid or was it the fans of Chelsea? And that might be a very unfair question because of how much you were able to contribute to the one club. Not that you didn't contribute to Madrid at the Santiago Bernabeu, but you spoke about Chelsea being a home. But, you know, was there ever moments where you really felt like a king in front of those fans?
Well, I don't know, but I would say I felt more like a king when I came here. You know, Budweiser made me a king, and I came here to be a king, and you know, I'm a king now for Budweiser, and you know, I'm gonna help with my status to kind of get the fans more closer to their heroes, and also inspire the young ones.
Did you keep a close eye on the Africa Cup of Nations that wrapped up recently? Were you watching?
Not very much, but I saw a few games. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that the condition of African football now is better off than it has been in years before, or do you feel that maybe it's not at the level that we're used to seeing?
No, I think it's getting better. It's getting better. When you look back and you back in the past and you see the games nowadays, you can see a big difference, a big progress. So yeah, as time goes on, it will keep getting better.
Do you think that you were one of the players that helped break ground for future African stars to be able to be seen as serious footballers? I mentioned now Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, Senegal, Cameroon, but there's big names that come out of those teams, and you were part of that class that really made the world sit up and watch African football. We can go back to World Cups and Africa Cup of Nations, but in domestic leagues around the world, La Liga, the EPL, etc., you helped pave the way for perhaps now a young Pepe to go to Arsenal on a record fee. People might not remember that, you know, you had done it so many years ago, that you were a trailblazer in that sense, you know?
Well, probably. I mean, if I was one of those players with that kind of paved way for the young ones, then I'd be very honored. But as I said, I'm just a football man. I just love the game, and what comes afterwards I don't really pay much attention to it, you know.
What is Michael off the pitch like? I mean, you come across as a very relaxed, chilled guy. What do you like when you are not involved in football, when you're not playing football? What do you like?
Well, I don't really do much, to be honest. I'm quite chilled, as you said, and I'm very homeboy, and I like to be at home. And you know, after training, I just go home, you know, to relax. And if I have to do stuff like I'm doing now, then I love to do it, and I love doing charity stuff as well. So,
speak to me about the foundation. Of course, there's been loads of work that's been involved there too. I know that there's, you know, so many times we see these players setting up these wonderful foundations that help kids, etc. I know that I saw that it was one of the Man United players quite recently as well that had set up a foundation to try and help kids. Is that something that you've always enjoyed doing, and being able to, you know, help charities out and youngsters?
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's a big honor for us too. I mean, trying to give back to the community, especially where we grew up, and you know, it was, you know, we know it's not easy. It's quite tough sometimes. So, you know, when we get the chance to go abroad and doing well, we always want to go back and help.
You mentioned coming to South Africa now to try and speak about the Premier League and La Liga, and here's just some of the footage of the event that you were at yesterday. Do you feel that events like this and your presence here helps inspire young South African fans to relive the steps that you've made? Does this give them the belief, if you're maybe an under-19 superstar or under-21 kid, do you think that visits like this from you and events like this are able to shine light on the possibility of that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a big thing Budweiser is doing, and I'm very honored to be part of this big campaign. And as I said earlier on, is basically trying to inspire the young ones and trying to speak to them through what we're doing, and also bringing the fans closer to their heroes. I think it will help a lot, and I mean if the young ones are watching, when they see us, it kind of motivate them and try to do well.
If we go back 9 years to the FIFA World Cup in 2010 here in South Africa, Ghana had quickly become South Africa's second favorite team after we had crashed out. So much so that when there was the Luis Suarez volleyball, handball, red card, which is what I call it, he probably was the most hated man on the continent, I would like to imagine, because everyone just had this anger towards him. And then when Ghana wasn't able to progress because of that incident, it didn't sit very well with South African fans. But seeing the semi-finals of a World Cup there for the Ghanaian side, how far do you think the continent is from potentially going all the way in a World Cup?
I mean, I'm going to touch on what you said about Suarez. I mean, if I was in a situation, I'll probably do the same. Yeah. There's always a player who's going to take one for the team, and that's what he did. And unfortunately we couldn't go through, but that's one of those things. And to your second question, I would say, I mean, we always keep pushing. It's always been our dream to see, one of these African teams doing very well in the world stage, especially at the World Cup. So, we still have to keep pushing until it happens.
Who's the closest team you think that perhaps might be ready to win a World Cup from Africa? Who do you think is the closest product to being a final World Cup champion team?
Coming from Ghana, I'll probably
do you have to say Ghana? Is that right?
I'll probably say Ghana, but I mean, we've got the likes of there's a lot of good players nowadays in every country. So we just have to keep our fingers crossed. One day, our wish come true.
It's going to happen in our lifetime, right?
I'm sure it's going to happen before we're gone.
Before we get old and grey, we have to see an African team win a World Cup. That's what I would like to see. And I'd also like to see the World Cup coming back to Africa as well. I mean, we hosted it in 2010, but do you think in the near future the competition may well return to the continent? Well,
I hope it does. I hope it does. And I was very disappointed I couldn't turn up here for the World Cup. First time the World Cup coming to Africa, and I was very looking forward to it. And at the end, I have to pull out through injuries, but
Listen, I think again, if we talk about what's over your shoulder there, I think that you have had as glittering a career as many African footballers. So it was a real heartbreak to not have you be able to participate there, but you've gone on to make an outstanding career for yourself, and you've won millions of fans over around the world. So thank you for returning to South Africa. We really appreciate you being here. We hope you've had a good time. Please travel safe, and don't wait another 6, 7, 8 years before you come back.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me, and a big thanks to Budweiser for bringing me back again to South Africa.
That's all right. Thank you. Pleasure, Michael. Thank you very much. The incredibly cool Michael Essien joining us live in studio. What an absolute pleasure to have him on board again. Hopefully we can see Michael back in the country in the very, very near future. That's all the time we have. We'll take a quick break. Kathy's back with headlines after this.